asking about your approach to billboard alteration, as you know, contrasts to other groups.
What I do that's probably different than the other billboard people is I change the entire billboard, and the reason I do that is because if I just want to do an alteration, by the time I've created my alteration and got back to the billboard I saw, oftentimes they've changed it to another campaign. So if I just use their fonts and recreate their fonts to say cancer instead of camel, or do whatever I want in the studio, create the whole piece in the studio, then I never have to worry about what's on the billboard. So that's why I kind of use that approach over the years.
Oh, okay, and let's see. I guess I have to ask the usual question of have you ever been arrested doing these boards?
I was arrested in 1984 and charged with a second-degree felony.
Oh, okay. So when did you first come across the BLF? When did you first hear of them?
I think people had mentioned them to me I was traveling around the country in 1984, and I stayed at a commune in Northern California, and they told me about them, and they had also done stuff on their own, the people at the commune. And I actually didn't talk to them. We started appearing in the same articles, in the same magazines, and eventually Jack Napier gave me a call, and that's how I ended up hooking up with him, and we decided we would maybe do something together. And what we ended up doing together was a show in San Francisco, Billboard Art, and a show in New York, the same show.
And so when did you first start doing this kind of thing?
I started doing this in it was either 81 or 82, I think it was in 1982.
And what, outside of the billboard alterations, what do you do for a living, so to speak?
For a living, I make these kind of pop surrealist type of paintings.
Yeah. So I guess what do you think as far as contrasting your two different approaches to billboard alteration, as far as like how the BLF does? I mean, what do you think about the way they do that?
Well, over the years, I dealt with it more as if it was a job rather than some kind of adventure, and I think that the BLF dealt with it as if it was kind of a prank or like a situationist event or something like that. And really, to me, it was just really straightforward, and I dealt with it as if it was a 9-to-5 type of job.
Oh, okay.
You know, I traded in my 1967 Mustang for a truck so I could haul the billboard stuff around more easily. So kind of killed my love life for a while, but I was pretty committed.
And I always hear these people trying to assign some sort of a movement to this. But what do you think about that kind of?
A movement? I don't think it's the job of the artist that's creating art and his friends that may be creating similar art or in a similar vein to assign, any kind of tag to what they're doing. That's usually the job of a critic or a cultural critic or somebody like that. So that's not something that we have to think about, and we usually don't.
So what do you think the future of billboards? Are they going to be around for another 50 years, or what's going to happen?
Oh, I'm sure as long as there's public space, there'll be people, and as long as there's capitalism, there'll be ads in public spaces. It's actually getting worse now. They're having ads on everything available. I mean, I just got off the subway coming from Jersey yesterday, and they have ads on the floor as you come off the subway. So any space is now considered a potential to advertise. Can you drive down that way? Can you drive it down to the chair? Good girl.
So out here on the
She can go all the way to the chair. Maybe not. She's an angry young woman.
I was gonna say, out here on the East Coast, what are the reactions been like?
On the East Coast, people generally like it.
They're not too like cynical or too.
Yeah, and as far as I've never been arrested here, but it doesn't seem to be as big of a deal as it was in Texas. They pretty much wanted us in jail for at least a year for doing it, and they considered it a pretty horrible crime. and the way they rate the crime, it was the same as rape or bludgeoning somebody with a baseball bat. So their perception of the crime is quite different than it seems to be on the liberal East Coast.
And
But with Giuliani, I think he's trying to make things kind of bend more the direction of Texas, I think.
as I say, I noticed a lot of the Billboard artists have gone after the Think Different campaign, and you did that recently too. I mean, has that been something that's been really provoking a response?
Yeah, with the other people it had, and I assumed somebody would do like Think Different and make Hitler or Manson, and nobody had. So when I realized that nobody had, that's when I decided to throw one up for the convention here.
Actually, speaking of your kids, what does your daughter think of this? Is she aware of the billboards and that you do change them? And
Yeah, she's aware that I do that, and she probably thinks it's normal. She got a little weird when I did Barney, and he was on fire. It was Godzilla versus Barney, and she's like, "What'd you do to Barney? What'd you do to Barney?" And I was trying to explain to her that he was taking a shower, but she didn't really buy that.
Yeah. Have you had any? What have the reactions been from as far as like sign companies or advertising? I mean, has anyone tried to go after you or been upset about it?
Sure, I've been prosecuted by the companies, and I've also got cease and desist letters. So I'm probably way too visible, and I'm probably the only one that actually uses his real name. So I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm actually in the phone book under my real name. So
yeah, I was wondering about that. That's your. Why did you choose that route? Is it just?
I don't know. For years I was Randall Hart, and then I switched to my real name, just figuring that the odds of them figuring out. Well, so many people came over to my house here, and then look, I was in New York, and I wanted to look you up so bad, but I realized they didn't have your phone number, and I realized that very few people know how to call up information and get somebody's phone number. So I guess I kind of felt safe just from that always happening to me, that people really aren't able to look up somebody's name in the phone book.
Yeah, because I noticed with your approach, it's a lot of times right in broad daylight, no sign worker uniforms or anything, and it contrasts a lot to how the BLF does that. And
well, I do that because if you're doing it in broad daylight, people would naturally assume that's what you're supposed to be doing.
People just don't.
Well, I would assume that if I was a cop, I would assume why would the guy be up there putting something that's not supposed to be up there, and how would I find out? What am I going to, try to find Seaboard in the phone book? They're actually like in another state, and find out if he's supposed to be doing this billboard, and it's too much a hassle. It just doesn't seem like something that people would actually be doing. And as long as the billboards are real slick and professional looking, then people assume they must be up there, that somebody's paid for it, and you're just a workman putting it up.
And have you been getting a lot of international response to these boards and with the website?
Sometimes. With certain boards, it hits like a nerve, and it kind of resonates around the world. Like, for instance, when I did the New World Order, that was like in magazines all over the world. People were sending me stuff from Germany and Australia and everywhere I could think of with pictures of that. And the abortion one, that happened with that too. People were sending me pictures back from Japan, that a lot of magazines ran pictures of that. So I think when you do stuff in New York, it gets photographed. All the international press is here, and if it's timely enough, they all pick up on it. I think the same thing happened with Marilyn and Monica. That got all over the world too. So if you want to hit a very timely subject in New York City, then it kind of proliferates around the world. It's just part of living in New York.
Right. Well, what do you think of graffiti art and taggers and so on, and how does that, as far as in relation to what you do?
Some people that are taggers and graffiti artists end up coming over and doing billboards. I think they like the dynamic of the billboard space. The problem with the billboard space is that you're not going to get the longevity that a lot of wall pieces will get, but the way that it's perceived, it's in complete corporate space, and people just read it differently than they read a wall. They think a wall is a mural, and that has a place, and that's an appropriate thing, and they may or not, maybe you had permission to do the wall or not, but it seems there's something very appropriate about that. But I think taking over a corporate space, people feel uncomfortable about that, and they feel like that's a real act of rebellion. And a lot of the graffiti guys want to be involved in that now. But as far as an art form, I'm very impressed with a lot of the graffiti artists, and I've been impressed with them since the early days of Crashin' Days and Futura 2000 and Phase 2. And it seems like the new kids now are even more organized and if it's possible, they're even more talented than the old school kids. I mean, I guess they had a higher place to jump off from in the beginning. And they had a higher mark already set for them by the early guys. And there's some people that are just absolutely phenomenal running around now.
What do you think of Twist,
Who's Twist?
the graffiti artist?
He's a San Francisco. He does a really stylistic.
Well, San Francisco really never produced anything worthwhile on any level, on any front. But no.
So
I don't know. I mean, it seems funny with him now because now he's like inside the system and he's going to be a huge monster commodity.
Yeah.
So I suppose I think the same thing everybody else thinks about him. I should have bought one last year.
So I noticed you've done quite a few boards with Joe Camel and a lot of the other cigarette ads. What do you think now of the whole banning of outdoor cigarette advertising? Is that?
Well, now I'm starting to feel real sorry for the billboard companies, or for the actually for the tobacco companies. And I'm thinking of taking up smoking just because I know they could use the extra business now.
Okay, we're ready.
My name is Pedro Carvajal, member of Sequeira Core Artists. And yes, my specialty is billboard alteration and street signs, alteration, liberation.
And how did you first find out about altering billboards and get involved with altering billboards?
It happened with Arfax in New Jersey City, New Jersey, and I think how Arfax connected with Ron English. And in fact, it was Ron English who introduced Arfax to the art of billboard banditry. Because before then, Arfax was just a group of young artists wanted to make a statement, high energy. Once they hooked up with Ron English, and he taught them, how to do billboards and the way he did it in Texas. Being a filmmaker, I got really interested, so we went together one day and we did, I think, 7 or 8 billboards. It was a lot of fun, I really, it was like an adrenaline rush for me, better than, taking drugs. It was really, really fun, and I really, from seeing what they were able to do that one day, it was very liberating, and just the idea of taking over a public space and just putting your messages, it was very empowering to me. So from that point on, I just wanted to hook up with them and just document, their activities.
So what is it specifically about billboards that appeals to you? Why wouldn't you just want to put posters on the side of walls or maybe even subways or something? I mean, what is it about the Pacific advertising space?
There's no way you can avoid, once you step out of your house or your office, you see them everywhere, it's just so unavoidable that, the more you realize what is happening to your mental environment, the more that you want to do something about it, but you don't really know what to do. And it wasn't until that day, when I saw the power.
That's where we're in.
So do you think advertisers have the right to dominate like all the visual space people exist in, or?
Well, just because they had the money, and that's one thing, if you had the money, you can do anything you want. So corporations, of course, they have control your mental space, your psychological space. They're everywhere, and they can afford it, so, they figure, well, we're gonna take over, the entire physicality of your space. And a lot of people say, but it's illegal, what you're doing is vandalism. But, listen, what they're trying to do is they're trying to take over your mental, psychological, psyche. If enough is enough, if you had the power, to go out there, and even though it's illegal, but, just take it back. There is such an incredible bombardment of images trying to sell a product, that I really encourage people. I mean, I know people say it's illegal, you infringing on people's freedom of expression, with advertising. But come on, it's everywhere. I'm just sick of it, and I really encourage everybody that want to really do it, just go ahead and do it.
So who do you think should have, their rights protected more corporations or people?
You know, after after you see what is happening to the American landscape, you have to really, figure it out. It doesn't really take that much to understand what is happening. I think it's just I think the people, they have the right to do whatever they want to do with those messages, and they also, I mean, even though they don't have the money, they can't afford to pay for a billboard. Just go ahead and do it. Go on the ground, only because, it's just. It's just totally out of hand, and you see companies competing against one another, it's just everywhere. It's just no billboards, they try to find any way. You go to the subway, they have monitors everywhere, selling you a product. You go to make it, a phone call at a telephone booth, and you see ads there too. And it's just, it's such an overwhelming invasion, your space.
One of the members of your group compared Billboard Liberation to the Boston Tea Party.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I think it's great. I think seizing a billboard is like a Boston Tea Party. It's like a little revolution, and it really is. I think it's very empowering and encourage people in communities to do that. To use those billboards. I think, to me, Billboard Liberation is the next evolution in muralism. You don't see murals that often anymore, and I think a billboard can be used as a canvas, in the urban landscape for not only artists, but anybody who is willing to make a statement, take over that billboard and utilize it. Yeah,
ultimately,
absolutely.
you control people by controlling the dissemination of ideas.
Oh yes, and information. I mean, and I'm not. I mean, I think access to the media is great, and it shouldn't be just billboards. Radio, pirate radio, I think is great, and it's really affordable. $500, you can have your own radio station. Especially if you have a really interesting community. Everybody can chip in. $5. Have your own pirate radio. The internet is gonna really help. Express messages that otherwise people wouldn't been able to do. So really exciting times. I think if we all get together, we understand the power of the media, and we have somehow access to it, we'll be able to at least make a difference.
So what would be...
I met them through you. I met John through you and Jack.
Well, actually we went to the Burning Man thing and waited all night for Jack Napier to show up, and they kept saying, he's dead. And then somebody says he went to climb a bridge, and both of them sounded like complete fiction to me. But it turned out he actually was out climbing a bridge all night, so we never... So he was kind of a mysterious figure to us for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, once I heard about him, I was really curious to know more about him. He was such a mysterious character, somebody who changes physique, every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, as far as the BLF go to great lengths to not be known in aliases and security personnel, and I was wondering what you guys sort of think about that approach.
I think it works for them. I guess it's a different kind of here. It's so open. That day when I went with Arfax and Ron English, we did 8 billboards. Broad daylight. Everything worked out so fine, and people just pretty much they leave you alone, Of course, things have changed since Giuliani took over, but still, I don't know. It's something about doing billboards during the day, You get better lighting too, and generally New Yorkers are so jaded, because they're just so overwhelmed with what is happening outside, It's so busy, that so what, So it's I think that is what's really allowing us to be more open, But I think it's interesting that they're very cautious, and I think that's good. Because if you get caught, you're gonna spend some time in jail, and it's a really hassle. And I think it's one of the things that made that group even more mysterious, given that kind of extra edge, which is actually very, very exciting, for a filmmaker, because it makes things much more interesting. And it's also it's kind of like a contrast between the West Coast and the East Coast. I think it's neat,
I was going to ask you guys, what do you feel about when you're on the board, or when you first started doing it? Is there like fear, adrenaline, paranoia? What kind of things go through your mind?
Yeah, I think the first time you look down and it's 5 stories or 6 stories down in solid concrete, and then you look over at the scaffolding and it's completely rotted out, you realize like one false move and you're dead, and you have to do this really fast because like at least the real billboard guys, they get to jerk around there for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and they have a ladder that hooks on the top so they can be very, very cautious and take their time. But yeah, you actually are putting your life at risk to do this, so it makes you think about what you're doing. But I guess it says something that we're still doing it.
It's also, I mean, it's you know what it is when you're up there. I mean, you forget about it, but it doesn't really happen until you are up there, and there is an adrenaline rush. Definitely, you feel like you're really doing something. For one thing, it's illegal, so you know that you are against the law. But at the same time, you want to put your stuff up there. He's an incredible artist, so he wants his things to be seen by everybody. I want to make a statement, people to see, what you can do. It's a high, it really is. I mean, I don't really, sometimes it can be very, very scary, but when you're up there, it feels good.
Yeah, when you come down off a billboard, a big crowd's developed, and they're all like they're trying to shake your hand and going, thank you for fucking doing that billboard. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that billboard. Yeah, that feels so good, That feels so good. You don't get that a lot, You really don't.
Another thing I've noticed too with a lot of these billboard, billboard alterators or manipulators, there's been a real sort of like sense of humor, a lot of sarcasm. It's not. I mean, I guess it would be too easy just to put up a really completely political thing and not. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's completely ineffective to get a message across with kind of a dogmatic approach. And people don't like being preached to. People don't like you to take a stance that I'm smarter than you are, because you're really not smarter than them, or you may have a little pocket of information that they haven't been exposed to yet. And if you deal with it with humor, that's kind of humbling yourself before them and not saying I'm smarter than you and I'm more clever than you, but I want you to enjoy getting this, and if you take something else besides the humor away with it, then that's like a bonus. But it's kind of like having an appreciation for your audience and a respect for them, I think.
Absolutely. And it's easier to digest. I mean, it's amazing, like the reaction that he got from the Think Different billboard with Charlie Mason. Every single person in that neighborhood, and I've been there like 3 times, they said, that thing is so awesome, that's great, and they understand it. I mean, they can really grasp the meaning, the action, the intention. They really identify with it, and I think that's even better than getting 15 creative people in Madison Avenue and designing an ad. I mean, he achieved that, and that's wonderful.
Oh, another question I had as far as conception of the piece. How long does it usually take? I mean, as far as do you see a billboard and instantly realize you want to do something to it, or how does that work?
Yeah, and then I usually go home and, like, if I see a billboard on a Friday, it'll be painted by Monday, and then I try to get a crew together. So usually within a week of figuring out what I want to do, it's up. I mean, my record has been, I've ridden past a billboard in the afternoon, and the same time the next day was completely different with my art on it. So, yeah, but it takes about 3 days to paint a billboard, or 2 days.
Oh, that's fast. Let's see this.
Yeah, it's
Well, I think we just lost our...
Who made that? Who did that?
Who did that?
Say who did that. See, that's my daddy.
What is it? Is it a heart?
Don't tell him. Tell him.
Ron? Yeah, Ron what? So what's his last name? What's his last name?
Tell him.
What's his last name? Oh, okay. And what's your brother's name? Oh, wow. And what's your mother's name? Wow.
Yeah, I just don't think they know reacts to it.
Oh, up there?
I'll
So Ron, what do you have a name for this symbol or?
No, I need to come up with one. People ask me that every day of my life, and I don't have a name for it. They're sperm. They're happy sperm hugging each other.
See, someone thought it was breasts.
No, they're little amphibians. They're like little tadpoles.